The Grand Conclave Hall, a jeweled relic orbiting a dying star, had been the seat of galactic power for 100 millennia, but the silence that now filled it was younger than a human heartbeat, and infinitely more terrifying. It began not with a bang, but with a missing data packet. A routine check-in from a long-range Viridian hegemony observatory, tasked with monitoring the development of 1,000 promising pre-contact worlds, had failed to transmit. The oversight AI marked it as a minor spatial static event and scheduled a retransmission request. When the second, third, and fourth check-ins from different assets in the same sector also vanished into the void, the first flicker of concern reached the desk of Conclave Prime Zoril. His multifaceted eyes scanned the reports, his insectoid limbs clicking a nervous rhythm on the crystalline console. The sector was unremarkable. A quiet spiral arm with only one world of any note, K-287, a turbulent class 12 death world its inhabitants called Earth. The files showed a species of remarkable brutality and short-sightedness, still tearing metal from the ground and burning fossilized sludge for energy. A curious species, yes, but not a threatening one. How could such a primitive world possibly be the source of such a profound and targeted silence? Cut to B-roll. Star charts with multiple lost signal markers blinking ominously around a single blue planet. The concern turned to alarm when the Gemini hegemony reported the complete loss of their scout flotilla, the Whispering Blade. 3 ships, equipped with the latest in void cloaking and sensor dampening technology, had entered the system for a standard biological survey. Their last transmission was a routine confirmation of arrival. Then, nothing. Not a distress call, not the energy signature of a weapon discharge, not even the lingering radiation of a warp core breach. It was as if the space they occupied had been neatly snipped out of reality. Ambassador Klar, his form seeming to shrink under the weight of the Conclave's gaze, presented the data himself, his vocal sac inflating and deflating with uncharacteristic anxiety. But the true turning point came from the Void Stalkers. A faction so secretive their very existence was a rumor to most Conclave members. Their ships were living shadows, woven from dark matter and perfected over eons to be utterly undetectable. Speaker Nala, a being of shifting smoke and captured light, materialized in the center of the chamber. In a voice like grinding nebulae, she delivered the blow. 27 of their passive observation posts, scattered throughout the K-287 system, simultaneous, had gone dark. The Conclave chamber, which had weathered political storms and civil wars, finally broke into open panic. What kind of power could see the unseen and silence the silent? Then, the message came. It didn't arrive on a standard channel. It didn't use simple frequencies. It erupted across the quantum entanglement communication network, the most secure and advanced system in the galaxy, reserved for Conclave-level emergencies. It bypassed all encryptions, ignored all firewalls, and appeared on every view screen, every data slate, every personal communicator of every delegate. It was a single, looping video stream. It showed a human face, calm, with eyes that held a depth of understanding that seemed to pierce through the screen. The being spoke one sentence, but its voice shifted seamlessly through the 12 official languages of the Conclave, then through a dozen more obscure, ancient dialects, some known only to a handful of linguistic historians. The message was always the same: the period of observation is concluded. The proctors will now be examined. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft, horrified whisper of Research Director Forlag. They didn't just detect us. They have been listening. They have been learning. For how long? Cut to B-roll, the human face on the screen, its gaze direct and unnerving, as various alien scripts scroll rapidly beside it. The survivor testimonies painted a picture not of a battle, but of a dissection. Scout Captain Tvesh of the Viridian Empire was a shell of his former self. He described how his fleet's multispectral cloaking system, a marvel of physics that rendered them invisible from every known form of detection, had been completely ineffective. The humans, he explained, used a layered sensor net they called the grid. It started with a form of resonant particle imaging, which painted a faint outline of their ships. When they tried to counter it, the humans switched to quantum state fluctuation tracking, a theoretical science the Conclave's top minds were still struggling with. They herded us, Tvesh whispered, his voice trembling. They used modified atmospheric craft, yes. But these were not the primitive jets our initial surveys reported. They were armed with focused plasma lances and shielded by gravitational distortion fields. They moved They moved like a single organism, with a coordination that was beautiful and terrifying. He paused, gathering himself. They didn't seek to destroy us. They sought to corral us, to force specific maneuvers. As if they were testing our response times, our tactical protocols. It was a live-fire examination, and we were the failing students. The testimony of the bionexus from the collective mind was, if possible, even more disturbing. Its living ship, a vast, sentient creature that traveled the void, should have been impervious to all non-organic technology. It didn't have engines to disable or shields to overload. It was the engine. It was the shield. Yet, the humans had captured it. Not with weapons, but with a symphony of precisely calibrated energy. Fields that induced a state of temporary synaptic paralysis. They did not interrogate us in the way you understand, the Nexus communicated. Its thoughts appearing as text on the chamber's main screen. They isolated each of our constituent minds and began a process of conversational deconstruction. They showed us images from our own history. Asked questions about our art, our philosophy, our childhood myths. Within hours, they had not only mastered our language but had understood the emotional and cultural context behind every word. They learned our social structure by discussing our family units. They deduced our military doctrine by asking about our games. They possess a cognitive architecture built for pattern recognition on a scale we cannot comprehend. They see the threads that connect all things, and they pull on them to see what unravels. Could any defense stand against a species that learned your deepest secrets not through torture, but through conversation? The final blow came from Commander Rax of the Cthar Warfleet. A hulking brute whose species had conquered systems through sheer, unrelenting force. His pride was as broken as his flagship. He had led an armada of 50 vessels, the Fist of Unification, to respond to the distress calls. They entered the system with weapons hot, expecting to crush any resistance. Instead, they found empty space. Then, the space around them moved. It was the station, Rax growled, his voice a low rumble of shame and fury. The one they built in their orbit. It unfolded. Parts of it detached and reformed into a web of weapon platforms. And it opened fire with our own technology. The station's primary armament was a perfected version of the Cthar heavy plasma cannon, but with a rate of fire and accuracy that defied physics. It used Viridian point defense systems to shoot down their missiles. But these systems were networked with an efficiency the Viridians themselves had never achieved. They had taken our greatest strengths, the products of millennia of warfare, and refined them in a matter of weeks. They made our technology elegant. The most chilling detail was saved for last. A fragment of a human transmission, intercepted during the battle. A calm, analytical voice stating, combat data acquisition at 98%. Subject Cthar demonstrates predictable assault patterning. Conclude test. Initiate capture protocols. The humans hadn't been fighting a war. They had been conducting a laboratory experiment. And the Cthar fleet had been their lab rats. Beneath the Antarctic ice. In a facility known as the Crucible, the other side of the story was being written. Dr. Eris Thorne watched as engineers worked on the skeletal frame of a new warship. The alien technology is advanced, but it's stagnant, Chief Engineer Petrova explained, gesturing to a holographic schematic. The Viridians perfected light bending stealth 10,000 years ago and have been iterating on it ever since. They never thought to combine it with the Cthar's raw energy output to create a phased cloaking device that lets you fire while invisible. Why would they? They never had to. This was humanity's secret weapon. Not merely reverse engineering, but synergistic integration. They took the collective's bioneural circuitry and fused it with human predictive AI, creating a tactical computer that could not just calculate, but intuit. They took the Void Stalker's dark matter propulsion and merged it with theoretical human designs for a quantum slipstream drive, resulting in an engine that could bypass conventional space entirely. General Wolf entered the command center, his face grim. The Conclave is not taking their failure well. Our deep space listening posts are detecting fleet movements from a dozen different sectors. They're consolidating. They're planning a unified strike. A force of over 1,000 capital ships. He looked at Thorn. The question, Doctor, is no longer if we can stop them. The question is, what do we do with the victory we both know is coming? Do we become the new wardens of the galaxy, or do we simply leave them to their fear? Cut to B-roll, a massive hangar bay under the ice, filled with the skeletal frames of dozens of hybrid warships, glowing with energy. As the final preparations were made, as the 50 ships of the Vanguard class were armed and crewed with the best pilots and AI symbionts, the last piece of the puzzle fell into place. A deep cover agent within the Conclave's communication network delivered the enemy's full battle plan. It was a classic, brute force envelopment strategy. The kind of tactic a committee would design, powerful but predictable. They would arrive in 3 waves, attempting to overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer numbers. They were still thinking in terms of a military conquest. They had not yet understood that the nature of the conflict had changed. Thorn stood on the command bridge of the flagship, resolute, watching the stars on the main viewer. He thought of the human face that had been broadcast to the galaxy. The calm declaration that the test was over. The aliens had been the proctors, grading humanity's progress. Now, the roles were reversed. The first wave of the Conclave fleet was due to emerge from warp in 24 hours. The trap was set. The final examination was about to begin. And as the Resolute powered up its hybrid engines, a new signal was sent to the entire human fleet. A signal that contained only 2 words. The same 2 words that had been intercepted from the Cthar battle. The same 2 words that now heralded a new age. The signal read, Phase 2. This time, it was not a test. It was a statement.